traction when you just tag a game like we've been telling you for the last year. You just aren't getting as many views as you used to. We're going to take a look at the numbers today and look at what's trending on the platform. Streamers are going up. Views have kind of plateaued and started going down. What can you do about it? Also, the biggest streamers on the platform are struggling too. We're going to examine what strategies they're using to try to push through this sort of hump, if you will, with the algorithm on Facebook gaming so that you can get the best possible insights. And Andrew Perrin, aka Astral, Facebook gaming celebrity, is going to show you his analytics and his trends over time and what he's been experimenting with when he broke his channel on purpose and then he started fixing it. What does that tell us about the algorithm? Oh, you better stay tuned to find out digital drop style. This podcast is sponsored by Restream. Why live stream to one platform when you can simultaneously live stream to every platform to discover new audiences faster using Restream.io? Start talking.
So we're going to start on this average CCV chart again. This is Streamlabs Q3 2020 report. We did a full episode unpacking this bad boy as we do every quarter. But what we're looking at specifically is from Q2 to Q3, the drop in Facebook average CCV, the drop from 379,000, basically 380,000, down to 370,000. Now that doesn't seem like much of a drop, but it's the first time the CCV, the average CCV, has dropped in the history so far of the data that we've been monitoring of Facebook gaming.
Yeah, why that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad because it's the first time it dropped, and unique channels hasn't dropped, and total hours streamed hasn't dropped. They've continued to go up. So now, for the first time, the opportunity has waned significantly because you've got a lot more competition streaming, and suddenly there's less viewers to go around. So you have more people competing over less streamers again, which we repeated so many episodes. That's not the situation you want to be in. So has this opportunity waned? Are we looking at Facebook gaming? Is this the best they can do? Like, is almost only 400,000 concurrent viewers the best they can do? Is it going to go back up from here? These are important questions because there's a lot of streamers who were relying on the opportunity on Facebook gaming, myself included. And if that opportunity is starting to go away, we're going to have to shift our strategy a bit, because I don't think I expected it to be so little and go away so quickly. I expected it to maybe get to at least 1 million concurrent viewers, but I don't know now if it's going to get there. And I'm a bit skeptical of it, and with some of my own tests. But before we get into some of my own tests, I'm going to get some thoughts from you guys as well. Do you think it's going to keep trending down on average CCV from here or not? Because I need to know your takes on it so I can understand how to proceed here.
Ross, you're up first, man. Hit me with it.
I think this next month could be really tricky, guys. And I almost want to say we shouldn't take the next month seriously. Look with everything that's coming out in the next month. I think there's a chance that it could increase back up just because you have releases in next gen, just because you had a whole army of new release titles coming in that people are going to want to see, and they're going to want to see that on next gen, and very few people are actually going to have an opportunity to get next gen consoles right away. So yes, I think the number could possibly go back up, but it's a matter of, will it stay there? Just because all this new stuff is coming up doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that it'll be there in December or January or February. So I guess, do you guys feel like everything that's happening in gaming within the next month could kind of fool us and see unintentional rise that really doesn't mean anything?
There's a couple big factors here too. So right now, at the time that we're recording this, we've got record high cases of COVID-19, and that is also going to be a major factor, unfortunately. I think this is going to result in, as we move into the holiday season, more job loss, unfortunately, and therefore more people at home that are viewing content and live streaming. So the rise that we saw, I'll go back to the chart here. I mean, this is very, very possible for this to happen. The rise that we saw at the beginning of this year, that you see at the beginning of this chart, that mega 45-degree angle spike there, when COVID dropped between Q1 2020 and Q2 2020, where it went from 250,000 concurrents up to 379. I think we could potentially see another increase from here, simply because millions millions of people will be back at home, unfortunately, because of the virus. I think that effect is going to kick in late November and going into December. The question is, how large is that effect globally, especially because Facebook gaming is a global platform? How is that going to impact major markets for the platform, such as the Philippines, in addition to the US and what have you? US is going to have problems with this virus, which is what drove all of the growth that we saw up until this point. But the question is the rest of the world going to have as much trouble? Probably not, but they'll have trouble on a certain level. And so unfortunately, that basic fact, I think, is going to increase not just Facebook gaming, but the entire streaming industry is going to see an increase moving into the latter part of Q4, which means more concurrent viewers, which means that a lot of you guys, I think, are going to have opportunities to capture those new viewers that are just spending more time on their phone at home because they're out of a job or they have less work. Recent statistics did come out saying that more than a quarter of workers in the United States have had a significant reduction or loss of job or the amount of money they're making at the moment, which means less hours, right, to work, which means more time to view. So that kind of major market factor is what drove this whole chart we're looking at right here. And I think that market factor is back in play. And all of the experts are saying coronavirus is going to spike again. We're in the third wave. It's going to be the worst of all of them, is what they're saying. Like, the scientists are saying that. And as a data-driven podcast, as a podcast that is going to put politics aside and is just going to look at the numbers-wise, that's very good for the streaming scene. Obviously very bad for the people. What are your thoughts on that?
So, yeah, that could open up and continue some growth on Facebook gaming. It could keep the organic alive, which is good. That's why a lot of us have flocked here. Despite that, though, this is still a red flag. This drop is still a huge red flag because it's really early for a decline to occur here. Like, it's really, really early. And it's the first warning sign that the growth opportunity, that organic growth opportunity, is peaked. And it might be it may not be, but it may be on the decline here out. In which case, for those of us who got in early and kind of reap some of the organic benefit, we should be expecting that to maybe decline. And anybody getting into Facebook gaming now should also expect there to be some organic growth, but not monstrous explosive necessarily. And the thing about Facebook gaming is, I'm going to go a little bit into my own personal data here. It's very volatile. And what we're finding, the further we go into it, is you are subjected to a brutal algorithm treatment, and that's really, really hard to overcome. Case in point, let's take a look at my data here from September into October. A lot of other Facebook gaming streamers said they had a lot of issues in late August through September. I did as well. I'm gonna unpack the data specifically. I had a nice upward trajectory here, and I went over this on my own personal channel a little bit, of growth. And each one of these points is a week of streaming, by the way. So as you can see, each week I'm peaking at about the same point, but overall it's going up. And then suddenly I did something here, or the algorithm did something here that really, really pushed me down. Now I still have like an upward trajectory, like I'm still growing month over month, but I hurt my total progress. My total progress went way down to like this huge, I've been calling this like the drop gap here. And what could have happened here? So I went over this on my channel. I changed the game I was streaming, and I know streamers do this. They change their game, and I know we have the 80-20 rule, and I was employing that rule on my channel before this 80-20, and I broke the 80-20 rule at this period, and this is why you see this drop gap. I streamed another game for more than 50% of my time, and because I did that, I got crushed by the algorithm. And it was really difficult, and it's going to take a really long time for me to come back. If you look, I'm still not quite. I'm still like almost back to where I was in the beginning of September. So I lost, and we're almost at the end of October. I lost 2 months of progress by making a single decision on Facebook gaming. That is brutal for people to have to do. I've noticed that big streamers do this too. Successfully though, so I'll get into that in a second. Like, can you change your game on Facebook streaming? Facebook gaming, I'm gonna go with no, because it's going to do this effect for you.
Yikes. Okay, so let's recap that. So you're saying that if you stream one game which is what your experience is with, and this is what we've seen all the big streamers out there. You stream one game, it's upward trajectory, the momentum is building, that snowball effect is building, but as soon as you add more than 20% of any other game, and you added almost 50% of another game, you just set your channel back by months of progress in terms of audience growth, and Facebook took away that algorithm juice that served you more and more viewers and got your concurrence up to like 200 plus as you were streaming because you streamed more than one game. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So let me go into the algorithm reasons as to why this occurs, because this is important for you to understand, because this is the game you're playing. You are governed and ruled by an algorithm. So you wanting to change games and making it work, maybe some streamers are making that work, sure, but it doesn't match with the algorithm, because the Facebook algorithm, let me see if I can like white out my screen here real quick. Actually, that's way too much. So Facebook Gaming is going to deliver your stream to viewers, and let's just call these like chunks. And I'm going to just draw on the screen here with like these different boxes. Let's say these different boxes are batches of 50 viewers a piece, 50 followers rather. Let's just say, okay, whenever you go live, Facebook Gaming will distribute your stream initially to the first box. And if those 50 followers really, first of all, they turn up and they're watching and they watch for more than a minute. And then if they comment and engage a bunch, Facebook will be like, okay, your followers love this. Let's distribute this to the next block of 50 followers. And it continues and it continues as long as you're successful and you stream properly and your followers like it. As soon as you swap that strategy, let's say you do a different game, no matter what, if you have followers built up of one game, if you stream any other game, even if it's a blockbuster hit game, your followers are not going to be as interested. So the Facebook Gaming algorithm is going to notice when you hit this first block and only 20% of the followers of the 50 show up, and some of them barely comment. Then Facebook's going to say, you know what? Nah, let's not do this. Let's not do these now, because obviously that content is not performing to the average that this channel can do. So you are fighting that algorithm every time. So no matter what, if you choose any other type of content that is going to be less successful than your average on your page, the Facebook Gaming algorithm will tank you. Then even if you go back to streaming what is really, really great, it'll take you a while to build back up to that average again, because Facebook Gaming permanently knocks you down to the lowest common denominator on what content you're trying to regularly push. So if you keep pushing lower performing content, Facebook Gaming will say, okay, but we're going to push all of your reach down to that content's level, right? So if you want to start streaming content, let's say you want to start streaming your main game again that your followers love, then if you keep streaming it, Facebook Gaming will say, okay, we're going to start bringing your channel back up to the level we know that this can do. So keep that in mind when you're streaming. You are subjects under the algorithm. The algorithm will rule you. And if you don't understand it, you're playing a dangerous game and you can destroy your channel growth. Did I explain that in an apt way, guys? Did that make sense to you? Okay.
Yeah, it did. Real quick, I just want to recap your timeline of events here so people have a good idea. So since the beginning of this story, let's just call it that, you were streaming Mobile Legends and then you switched up games. How long did you stream this new game?
I do 2 streaming segments per weekday, Monday through Friday. And I do a morning slot and an evening slot. Okay. The morning slot is 2 hours. The evening slot can range from 3 to 4 hours. And the evening slot is my prime time. And I stream Mobile Legends. I was doing Mobile Legends for all the streams all week, except for the very last stream I would do Among Us for like 2 hours during the morning slot. And that was fine. I didn't really see any negative effects from doing that, from swapping to like one game for a single stream, which was less than 20% of my total streaming time. That seemed to be fine. The issue was I replaced all the morning streams with a new game, Genshin Impact, which ended up being a huge game on all the different streaming platforms, by the way, and many different creators got huge audiences from it. But my audience, and even though my audience was interested in this game, not nearly a high percentage of my audience was interested in it. I streamed it every morning stream for a week, and I went back to Mobile Legends in the evening. So I did 50-50 split. That's This is the results. These are the results of that.
Okay, but that's only a week, and it did that. Like that's concerning.
I would
That's
argue
really
after I streamed it more than once, Facebook gaming, like you can have a bad piece of content on your, you can post a bad piece of content or live stream a bad piece of content on Facebook gaming once. But once you've seen that happens and that Facebook gaming has seen that it's bad, if you try it again and it's bad, Facebook gaming algorithm will make note. It will make a permanent note. Like, okay, we saw that's bad. You wanted to post it again, even though it's bad. Okay, we're gonna knock you down a little bit. It will do that to you. So you can make the mistake of posting a piece of content that is not good, but you have to learn from it instantly and not do it again. Because you have to learn the lesson faster than the algorithm. And that's really hard to do because the algorithm is very fast.
Well, we've got a comment here from Kassar that is similar, and I'd love to get your feedback on it live on YouTube. Yes, most of the time I stream Euro Truck, which is actually one of the bigger titles on Facebook gaming. Interestingly, people love watching truck simulators. Get about 1K viewers, he's saying, but if he changes a game to anything else, he gets like 80 to 100 viewers when he moves to any other game. So the question that's like intuitively you're thinking, well, a bunch of these viewers must be falling in love with me, right? They must be falling in love with my stream and wanting to come back for that experience regardless of the game. But what you're saying, different than, let's say, Twitch that has no algorithm. In this case, the algorithm is serving these other games to his followers that aren't Euro Truck Simulator. When they don't click in those initial batches, batch 2, 3, 4, and 5, that would potentially ramp up your viewers over the course of your stream, don't even really happen, essentially, because you switched the game and the initial viewers that it served it to didn't respond well to that stream showing up as a notification, and you basically are doomed on that particular stream because he switched off of his main game. Is that a fair summary of the algorithm situation that Kassar is running into?
Yeah, so we see this happening with Darkness429, Stone Mountain 64, and all the other big streamers. Watch, when they're streaming their bread and butter, Darkness, let me refresh right now. He's streaming Call of Duty, so he's back to his bread and butter, and it's almost at the 2K now. It's kind of early in the morning for him. It's still lower than I'd say his average. He has been streaming other games, and when he does, he will go sub 1,000 viewers, easy, and he'll stay down there. And what Darkness429 and Stone Mountain 64, when they stream stuff that isn't Call of Duty, they are running into the same problem. They are running into, okay, we're only going to reach a smaller percentage of our audience now, and the algorithm is actually hitting them too. The difference is they are bigger, and they are featured in more places to make up for the damage done to their channel, so they can recover more quickly. But technically speaking, if they never strayed away from those games and they only did Call of Duty, they would grow faster and they wouldn't have to repair. I call it like repairing damage, because for me, it took like 2 months to get back to that point where I was before. Or actually, it only took really a month once, because I was testing the problem by end of September. So it took about a month to repair. Darkness429, Stone Mountain 64, when you're bigger, you can repair it more quickly. And here's another reason why. They're featured in more places, and because they're bigger and they have higher concurrent viewerships, they get rated or hosted more often. And that's really, really important. I ran into a situation where I had cut my top kind of peaks was like 220 concurrent viewers. And after doing this destruction to my channel, I went down to about like 50 to 80 max, maybe. I think it was down to 50 max. So consider that. You're up to 220 concurrents. You do this, and I'm permanently down to 50.
60 to 70% loss, 60 to 70% drop, just because you experimented a little bit with some other games. I mean, that is a brutal algorithm.
So here is what fixed me, though, much more quickly. I got a host by another creator who hosted me for 117 concurrent viewers, which brought that stream up to my average again. Because the only reason was because somebody else rated me with a high number of viewers. That brought me back in the algorithm. That brought that piece of content. Facebook's algorithm saw that piece of content and said, hey, whoa, because of this, we're suddenly back to our average again. Okay, now from now on, whenever we do this type of content, I'm going to distribute it back to the same average proportion that I normally do.
I see.
And I was saved I thank you to that person who hosts. I forget their name off the top of my head, but they saved and they saved me probably 2 to 3 weeks of grinding to get it back up there by a single host. But the only reason that happened is because I have a decent concurrent viewership to begin with. If you're sitting at 1 to 10, you're not going to get rated or hosted nearly as much, and you're not going to get to see this effect so much. So Darkness 429, these bigger streamers who seem like they can jump to game without without consequence. They have consequences. They can just repair them more quickly because they have more tools and they're a higher concurrent viewership. They have a higher threshold, so they have more. They're getting hosted more. They're getting rated more. More beneficial things are happening to their channel. So you can multi-stream technically. Sorry, not multi-stream. You can stream different games technically, but no matter what, because of the way the algorithm works, it's going to hit you hard, and there'll be consequences for doing so every time. That's what I mean when I say this algorithm is brutal. So for those of you trying to come over and get growth on Facebook gaming, I mean, understand what you're getting into in the get-go. There is organic growth still here. It's waning. It's also extremely volatile because of the algorithm, and you have to try to understand something that's invariably more complicated than most of us want to admit. The algorithm is actually extremely detailed and complicated. So, and I'm simplifying it here enough for you to understand to hopefully be successful, but understand that going into it. If you're okay with that, I still think if you stream one game and you have a solid strategy and you go by the numbers, you'll do really, really well. If you're going to do a different game, I would say open up a new page for it. Just do a whole new page for it, because there's no point in destroying your current page with the one game that you have some traction on.
Well, speaking of a restreaming strategy, Zero Bandwidth in our YouTube chat is saying that, so, and this is just an idea, and you've pitched this to me off of the podcast, Perrin, and go ahead and get that link and discount code ready for Restream, because what he's saying is, what if you used Restream to push one type of game to Facebook, your main game, for example. In your case, it's Mobile Legends. In Kazar's case, it's Euro Truck Simulator. But when you want to play a different game than that, you just flip off Facebook gaming in your Restream and then push out that stream to Twitch and YouTube and DLive and Trovo, platforms that don't have an algorithm that's so brutal when you want to play other games. And then when you want to play the main game, you just stream it to Facebook gaming in that case. What are your thoughts on that? And by the way, right now, Ross is going to post in chat for you guys. Restreaming is how we discovered Facebook gaming, and Restreaming is how you can innovate and juice out all these different platforms for everything they're worth algorithm-wise. And that's the tool that we're talking about right now. Ross will post that link in chat with the discount code DROP1 that will allow you to get 25 or 30% off, I forget what it is, on your first month if you decide to buy Restream, who sponsors the podcast. So what are your thoughts on that? Restreaming to everything on your main game and then turning off Facebook gaming specifically when you're switching games or doing experimental stuff, or just trying to keep yourself happy playing games that you freaking like. Like, what do you think about that, man?
So I did this test as well. I did this test. I did a test where I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, you know what? I want to stream Genshin Impact. I'll just turn off Facebook gaming, and I'll just stream to Twitch and all the other multi-stream locations. You know, multi-streaming is really, really nice for that. The problem is, in the week I did that, I had less content going out on Facebook because where I would normally be streaming there, I cut that. That's not good either. If you have a set schedule where you have consistency on Facebook gaming and you stray from it, you will take damage. You will take damage on your channel. So I was doing 2 streams every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 streams per day. And then Friday I would do 1. I cut my morning streams for an entire week. And so I only streamed at my prime time slot for 3 to 4 hours. And same thing happened. I tanked in performance. And Facebook would not send my content out to nearly as many people. Why? Because I had less content total. If you think about it from a macros perspective, I should have seen this coming. Anytime you have less content, that's bad. More content, always good.
That's fair. That's fair. More better.
More content's always better. So if you're removing content from Facebook gaming, you're going to have to expect to do worse. Even if you want to stream the game just because you really want to stream it. I mean, maybe you can take that hit. Maybe you can do it like once. I'd say if you keep it within the 80-20 rule, you're okay. And someone asked here in chat, does this mean variety streaming on Facebook gaming simply isn't possible? I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm saying it's very challenging. And I think some creators are going to be able to do it better than others. But I think for a lot of us, especially if you're in the small to medium sized level, you need to be fitting it within an 80-20 rule. You can only do the new variety stuff on a 20% area. So I would say, while you can do what you're saying with multi-streaming, you can just turn off Facebook, but only do it within that 20% margin. If you're going to do it more than that, you're going to take damage, and you probably will take some damage even in that doing it that 20%. But I think that's recoverable quite easily, at least within like a couple of days or a couple of good solid streams to get you back to your average. It's all about thinking about where Facebook thinks your average viewership is. And if you do something that makes Facebook think it's less now, it will be less. If you make them think it should be back to average now, it can be back to average. If you do something that exceeds your average, Facebook will be like, okay, now we're going somewhere, and that's how we grow, right? That's where the growth is. If you can figure out how your content can outperform your previous average, and you know this, I'll show you guys. You can know this if you go to your content library and you go to distribution. We don't show this enough when we talk about Facebook gaming, and we'll see if mine's gonna load here.
Come on, Zuckerberg, let us see the data.
Okay, distribution. This is extremely important. This is probably one of the most important metrics when you're looking at the algorithm, because it's actually just telling you exactly what's going on. So instead of you trying to guess
for our
whatever,
audience, for our audio listeners, you're going into Facebook Creator Studio. You're clicking on the content library. You're looking at all posts, and on the right-hand side, there's a whole column called distribution, and the distribution will tell you basically whether it's greater or lesser than your average post or your average stream, which gives you an indication of what's basically killing your page or building your page, right?
Correct. And if you hover over it and highlight this little eye icon next to the distribution, and you can hover over it, and it'll bring up a pop-up box that will tell you, and here mine says, I'm on my stream from last night. It was pretty good. It says it was plus 0.8 times my average, which means it was higher than average. This is good. This is going to push me up. This is going to push Facebook's idea of what my channel can do back up above my average. So it'll send out my stream notification to more people the next time I go live. If I hover over it and I get this pop-up, it says my average performance as your other posts within 15 hours of publishing, up 1.7 times more 1-minute views, up 1.5 times more average view time. Let me get rid of these arrows, they're in the way right now. Up 1.5 times more reactions, down 1.1 times less comments, down 1.6 times less shares. And then it says, and this is the important part, understanding your distribution. 1-minute views is the metric that's having the biggest effect on your distribution. So because I had a good, I went back to like an older thumbnail style I was using in the past when I had my most successful streams. I got more 1-minute video views because I got more people to click and stay there for at least 1 minute. Facebook saw that I had a lot more 1-minute video views. Like, okay, the people like this. Maybe there weren't quite as many comments, which if I didn't have less comments on this one and I had more comments, this one would have boosted me in the algorithm. This one stream would have boosted me up. So go down through your content library on all posts and look at what's happening on your distribution. If you hover over each one, here's 2.5 times lower. Why? Because my 1-minute video views was 3.2 times less, okay? And that was because at the end of last week, I did an Among Us stream that was 4 times lower than my average, okay? And it had 7 times less 1-minute video views than what my average is. So the Facebook algorithm was like, oh, whoa, okay. If he's going to keep pushing that type of content, we're going to go down to that level. Luckily, I didn't keep pushing that type of content. I just did it once at the end of the week. I might not do it again on Facebook. We'll have to see. And here's another one, 1.3 times average. It's not always 1-minute video views that are going to boost you in the algorithm. This one's different. This one says my average view time was the metric that had the biggest effect on my distribution, because I had 3.8 times more 1-minute views, but I had less average view time. So despite the views being super big, they didn't stick around for very long. And that actually, even though I did plus 1.3 times my average, this piece of content did not push me in the algorithm as much as I'd hoped, because people didn't stick around and watch as much. Generally, and I don't know how much time we got here, guys.
We're getting toward the end of the podcast, but it's looking to me, Ross, like we need to do an entire episode just talking about these distribution metrics that you're showing right here. And this is basically telling you, Here are the things you need to do for our algorithm to push you. Higher average view time, higher 1 minute views, higher reactions, higher comments, and higher shares. So I think we need to do an entire episode talking about how do you boost those numbers every single time you stream so you can juice the algorithm as hard as possible. I think that would be a great episode for an upcoming one.
Yeah.
So in that episode, I'll be able to tell you. Sorry, Ross. I'll be able to tell you like which ones are the most important. Like which is 1 minute video views important. How does it relate to average view time? How important are reactions, comments, shares? I can actually organize those in order of importance. I've done enough testing. I know what they are. Ross, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say maybe a question to kind of close this out, because we've always been very openly pro Facebook gaming. However, this episode has been a little disturbing for me, seeing everything that you've shown off, and also more importantly, the comments of other people listening and watching this podcast right now saying, yeah, we're noticing the same exact thing. We're noticing big streamers who, as soon as they switch games, lose everyone. So I guess my question is, to kind of maybe close this out, is this algorithmic approach sustainable for Facebook gaming?
I've got an opinion on the matter. I think it is, and I think that the folks that run Facebook are juicing out the platform in 2020. And now that they're moving into the end of the year, having run corporate media companies and knowing how they work and talking to the big platforms, they are going to look at the revenue, they're going to look at the growth, and they're going to see how Facebook gaming is contributing to their overall business, basically. And the executives are going to look at that, and if they like the numbers that they've seen here in 2020, then they will unlock, if you will, more algorithm for the platform, for gaming streams in particular, moving into 2021, if they feel like it's contributing to Facebook's overarching goals as a platform. Also, they're going to be looking at business tie-ins with things like Oculus Rift and like Oculus 2 and what have you, and talking about whether Facebook gaming can contribute to those overarching business goals. And those budgets are being set here in Q4 right now. And the algorithm, how much they're going to unlock in 2021, what the directive's going to be for the engineering team and the software team and the folks that design the algorithm is being discussed right now. And if those numbers are positive and ramping up here into Q4, you better believe 2021 will be a very good year for Facebook in terms of gaming live streaming. All they have to do is turn up that knob, guys. They've got over 2 billion people on the platform. It's just up to them how much juice they want to give gaming overall as a vertical. That's my opinion. So that's why we're plateaued right now, is because they're waiting to kind of see, did this thing spike just because of coronavirus, or is it going to keep going? That's my view on the situation. Perrin, what do you think?
It's their algorithm, but this is the same algorithm that governs all pages. So with Facebook, you've got so much content being thrown at a platform and not nearly as many people, wanting to view that content. The amount of content versus content consumers it's not a good ratio. This is why you have this system that's brutal in routing poor performing content out. I don't think you're going to see that change. I think you'll see different features on Facebook gaming to try to bring growth and try to withdraw growth and feature and promote more viewership there, like payout features, like more ways for creators to earn money. But they're going to have to work on the concurrent viewership as well. I don't think the algorithm changes though, because it's the same algorithm that governs all pages, and it's going to continue to be brutal. But the thing is, you can learn it, and you can succeed at it. Tons of creators, not even gaming creators, have made successful brands on Facebook using pages, so it can be done. You just have to learn how it's done. I don't think how it's done is going to change. I do think that the Facebook execs will try to make Facebook gaming into a juggernaut. I do think they're going to want to try to compete with Twitch in a serious way. I don't think that's going to stop. So that bodes well for this to continue to work well. But the viewership has to increase.